Million Dollar Career, where we show you how to plan, build, and supercharge your own million-dollar career. I have with me today my returning guest host, Craig Picken. Craig is president of North Star Search Group, based in Wilmington, North Carolina, an industry-leading executive search firm specializing in aviation and aerospace. Craig consistently, and I mean consistently, produces well over $1 million in billings every year by himself. Welcome to the show once again, Craig. How are you this weekend?
Good, Rob. Happy Memorial Day weekend.
Yes, and like we were talking about before the show, all I've been doing is working in the damn garden, man.
Yeah,
Bags of mulch around.
Well, that's, look, you're an ex-military guy, and I am as well. And I use the weekend to, I both use the weekend to enjoy.
Yeah.
But I think back on I had multiple friends who were taken too early.
Yeah.
During their military service, and I reflect kindly. I reflect fondly upon them and their families.
I hear you, man. Same thing. I've lost a few brothers myself, and it's never easy. And I do think about them from time to time for the service of their country. But so all those downrange and those like us, amen, brother.
You just keep good thoughts out. It's a weekend of fond memories. That's the way I look at it. Fond memories, and you appreciate everything. This country has to offer. So
yeah,
it's all good. Well, hey, what's happening
good,
what's happening? We're going to talk interviews today, I think.
Yeah, when I talk about 3 ways to nail an interview, I get this question a lot from people. I've been getting it in my Q&A on my newsletter. So yeah, I want to talk about this. There's obviously a lot of tactics and tricks and strategies and stuff, but I thought about this a lot, and I narrowed it down to 3 that we can start out with. So number 1, play offense during an interview. Number 2, the art of storytelling in vignettes. And number 3, chance really does favor the prepared mind. So preparation. So we could kick it off with playing offense. And really what I mean by playing offense is, being able to conversationally map a conversation. In other words, all of us during an interview have certain things that we really want to highlight and bring out. And, a lot of times when you go into an interview, the interviewer sort of steals the interview, So without being arrogant, without being disrespectful, there's a real art, I guess, to being able to conversationally map what you're saying and doing to get it back to what you want to talk about, whether it's sales or, service or support. So that's my take on conversationally mapping.
Yeah. Well, the one thing everybody forgets, both interviewers and interviewees, is they forget that, everybody gets a vote. So if you're going in for an interview, you need to be interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. If you go in like a wilting flower, like I'm just here to, I'm here to get interviewed, you lost. You're not seeing, you're not seeing the what's in it for you side of the house. You're just answering a bunch of dumb questions.
Yeah. And that's why I don't know about you, Craig, but I mean, obviously we're executive search consultants. So we talk to our candidates and participants prior to the interview. But one of the things I do during a interview prep is I make sure that even the candidate knows the high points of their experience, because a lot of people don't realize it,
Yeah.
I mean, like I had a guy that I'll talk about when we talk about storytelling, but I met this guy. He was I met him in a Starbucks, and it turns out he was a state championship wrestler for the state of West Virginia.
Huh.
And when I met this guy, he had a presence. And I remember prepping that guy for his interview. I said, Jim, when you go to your interview, make sure you somehow bring up the fact that you're a state champion wrestler, because that's really important, because I want to present you as a sales guy, Determination and overcoming obstacles is very important. And he did that, and he ended up getting a job, got multiple offers actually. But for a guy like that, it was important that he be able to conversationally map back to the experience that was the most relevant.
Yeah. Well, look, my constant refrain is you have the time between, if you're on an elevator, you have the time between the 10th and 11th floor to show your value. You know,
Yeah.
5-10 seconds max.
Yes.
You know, the tell us about, hey, tell me about you question. You know, here's your chance to play offense. You know, I am a very accomplished sales, customer service, operations executive. You know, in my life, I've had, you know, this success here, there, and there. You know, my goal is in my career to, you know, do the, you know, to have a goal, a specific goal in your career. You know, that's, you know, then people get interested. They're like, wait a minute. And that's playing offense. You go in there and go, what, everybody has value in life. And you go, you know, at the end of the day, at the end of this interview, you know, if your goal is, I will communicate my value to this interviewer, you know, you're playing offense.
Yeah. It's like, well, that's the old elevator speech. I mean, that's like if I'm on the golf course,
Yeah.
or I'm at a restaurant, or if I'm at a neighborhood party. Just the other day, I met a guy who's an actual insurance producer who lives 5 houses away from me. He
Mhm.
just moved in a neighborhood. I didn't know that. And the guy, he runs a small agency, and he asked me, he says, so what do you do? Boom. My elevator speech is, I add value because of 3 things. 1, I'm local. Number 2, I'm a subject matter expert in insurance. Number 3, I'm part of a global organization that's publicly traded. Boom. Those are
Yep.
the 3 things. Everybody should always know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, many people go in an elevator, they go into an interview
Yeah.
with no elevator pitch. They go in with no game plan. So the funniest interview I ever heard of was a guy, actually, and I felt really bad. So this guy, I sent this guy into an interview, or I invited, he was invited to interview with a client of mine. And these guys needed like a senior director of program management for, it was a large aerospace company. And he goes and interviews with them, and they put him in the middle of the room, literally in the middle of the room, and they have 8 people around, each with 3x5 cards with a question on it. And they started asking him stupid questions.
Yeah. Yeah. Come on.
Tell us about yourself. You know, what was one of the best things you ever did in your life? And he listened to 3 of that, and he looked around the room, and he got up and he walked out. And he said, guys, I'm going to stop this right here, right now. You're not for me. And he said, they were absolutely flabbergasted. I'm like, yeah. So I talked to the client, who's no longer a client. And it was really funny. I go, what exactly were you thinking when you did that? Yeah. They're like, well, we don't, this is how we do it. I go, that's the dumbest damn thing I've ever seen in my life. Yeah. And you know me, and I'll just say, I'll call a spade a spade. That's the dumbest damn thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't give this guy a chance to say anything, but he realized that, looking around the room, if this is the most creative they could get on an interview, he was with a bunch of lunkheads. So I'm lunkhead out. I'm out of here. No sense of wasting any more time. So, but I think the offense part is, you know what you want to communicate to yourself, of yourself. But the second thing is, what do you want to get out of the interviewer to make you realize that this is the job, a place that you want to be?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and the other thing is just being aware of the surroundings, establishing common ground, because, you know, establishing common ground is the key to building and establishing rapport, which is the key to being able to conversationally map.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, like, if you were interviewing me now, right, and I was looking at you, I would notice in the background, you've got your naval aviator helmet.
Yeah.
Right. So and you've got a picture of a naval fixed wing. I think that is
A couple airplanes, E2 Hawkeye in the back.
Exactly. So naturally, if I was in the aviation and in the aerospace industry, I'll say, hey, Craig, I see you've got, you know, were you in the Navy before? Boom. All of a sudden you're off and running, man.
Right.
You know?
Once again, everybody has value. And you think about, like, you think about how this could, the playing offense, comes out. What do you want to tell people about yourself? Hey, look, you could have grown up in a rough neighborhood.
Yeah.
You know, and I survived a rough neighborhood where I got the snot beat out of me by gang members every day,
Yeah.
but I overcame it. You know, I know I placed a lady as a senior vice president, and she was telling me her story. And her parents, she grew up in, I want to say Mississippi, rural Mississippi. Her parents were farmers. They were eligible for food stamps, but too proud to go get them. They wouldn't take welfare. She grew up never having a $10 bill in her pocket. She went to college on a scholarship, became an Air Force pilot.
Wow.
And then, yeah, you listen to that story, you're like, whoa,
Yeah.
I want to
Yeah.
know, I want to know more about her.
And you know, some people with that kind of a background would never bring that story up in an interview, you know, unless you're, unless you go in there with a plan. You have to have a plan. So
Yeah.
the other thing is, so this whole notion of storytelling and I call them professional vignettes, like things that you've done professionally or even personally that really highlight your career. And I'm thinking of this wrestler, Jim. I told him, I said, make sure you highlight that in your interview and tell that story. And I talked to the client after the interview, and the client, Michael Sahari, he says, hey, Rob, I couldn't believe the story this guy told. I said, well, what happened? And he says, I can't believe this. So basically the story he told was he always wanted to be a championship state wrestler. So in the semifinals, he got hurt. He sprained his left hand. He almost got pinned, but he avoided the pin, ended up winning the match. And he had a sprained left hand and arm, and the coach and the trainer said, you're done, man. There's no way you can compete like this.
Yep.
And his parents were like, we don't want you to get hurt. You can't do it. And this was a heavyweight wrestler. This guy probably went, I mean, you're talking probably 225, 230. So he was a big guy. And he said, I'm going to rehab this thing. And the next match was the following morning. And he said, I rehabbed that thing all night, put ice on it, heat treatment, the whole thing. And in the morning, he says, it hurt like crazy. And the trainer said, I don't want you to go. And I think they had a replacement or something, a substitute, but he goes, I'm going out there. And he goes, I can still remember the shooting pains up and down my arm and shoulder or wrestling this big dude who is from the rival high school or college.
Yeah.
And he said, it was like God came down out of the heavens, and I ended up in a reverse Nelson or something and ended up pinning this guy. He says, I almost broke this freaking guy's neck. He goes, I wanted to pin this guy so bad. And the guy slapped the mat. He tapped out, and he said, I won. Yeah. And he said he told this story, and my client hiring authority said, man, I had tears in my eyes. I couldn't believe this guy had done this. He goes, after the interview, I said, dude, I want you to come and be a sales guy. Because he was only like 2 years out of college. He said, I'm going to train you. I'm going to train you how to be a sales guy. I love your determination. I just love everything you're doing. And that guy's still there. Like, this is probably 8, 9 years later, just kicking ass and taking names later.
Yeah. There's a great,
that was a vignette, man.
Look, there is nothing more powerful than a story.
Yes.
There are competitions. I mean, it's interesting. If you go out to Western North Carolina, there are competitions, like storytelling competitions, where these people get up and they tell stories.
Really? Wow.
But you know, I mentor a lot of college kids.
Yeah.
And I send every college kid that I mentor, or anybody that ever asked me, there is a YouTube clip. And the guy's name is Neil Bearden. And it's Neilbearden. And it talks about the power of stories.
Yes, it is, man.
And Neil does it, and he talks about a private equity guy looking for an associate, and why, and the power of a story. I'll send this to you. I send it to everyone. I just did a Zoom interview. A friend of mine asked me to help a young fella make a career change. He's trying to, he's recent college graduate. Now he's trying to, and I made this guy, I said, I want you to watch this video 3 times. Because what's interesting is this guy's a fishing guide in Montana.
Wow, really?
And since, he graduated college 4 or 5 years ago, and he became a fishing guide, in Montana. And it's a lot of wealthy people, he'll go take them out for a day to hunt and fish. Well, look, that could, some people would say, well, how does that translate to industry?
Oh,
I
yeah.
go, well, my answer is there's a lot of ways that translates to industry. And I taught him about reading this book, or watching this video, not reading the book. I'm sorry, watching the video. And there's nothing more powerful than a story.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, think about it. Jesus Christ, right? He didn't instruct people. He told stories in the form of a parable.
Right.
It was all allegories. The whole Bible is nothing more than an elaborate allegory. You know what I mean? And look how effective he was. Pretty effective,
Aesop's fables,
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, they're all powerful stories.
Yeah.
And that's what people remember.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what people will remember. It's like how, and everybody, this is the funny thing. Everybody thinks, oh, I'm boring, I don't have a story. A lot of people, humility, they're humble, they're, you know what? You get in, I don't care who the person is, you get into the story of their life.
Yeah.
And you will find something really, really interesting in there. Everybody, 350 million people in this country, there are 350 million cool stories.
Everybody has a story. Everybody has a story. I mean, I've met bums on the side of the street that I've struck up a conversation with. They've got a story. Chances are, they were in the corporate world, or they were an entrepreneur. A family member got sick. They lost all their money. They lost the house. I mean, it goes downhill very, very quickly. And so even those people have stories. I mean, everyone has a story.
Yeah. Yeah. What's interesting is my brother, I'll give you a great story here. So you learn something about people you've known all your life. My brother runs an insurance agency. He was a news guy.
Is that right? Really?
For most of his career. Well, he becomes an insurance guy, and he wants to understand the mentality of the people that buy an insurance. He wants to get out of news. He's been in news all his life. Yep. So he drove an Uber for 6 months. And he drove an Uber? Yeah, he goes, I drove an Uber 6 months. And then he goes, and then I find out he does stand-up comedy. It's funny. He writes comedy, and he goes down to the local comedy shop, and he goes on, open mic night, and he does 5-minute sets on open mic night. I'm like, dude, I didn't know you did. Yeah. And then he's writing a novel, and he's been sending me his novel.
Wow. 2
chapters at a time as he reads it, or as he writes it. And I'm reading this thing, and I'm going, man, there's so much of this I never knew about. Now I can talk about the story about my brother and go, hey, look, this is a guy you thought you knew. And you're like, wow, where did all this come from? So anyway, that's the whole deal. The power of a story.
Yeah. Well, I'll move on to the next topic here, number 3, which is preparation. But before I do, so there's a great online university, if you will. It's called The Great Courses. They were recently bought by a company called Curiosity Stream. And I've been a monthly subscriber to that for probably 10 years. And I've taken like probably 50 or 60 courses on there, just about everything. And one of the ones I took was the art of storytelling. So there's actually somebody on there. It's like a 9-part series, sort of like in college format. It's art of storytelling. And this woman gets on there and she tells you, how to tell a story, what are the components of a story. So there really is an art to it. I mean, you have to have a lot of natural ability, but you can learn how to communicate better. It's a skill, it's not an attribute, you know what I mean? So the other one is preparation. And a guy told me one time, chance favors the prepared mind. And it really is true. You've got to prepare for an interview. You really do. You have to put the time in. You have to look at the website. You've got to, take notes, have notes in front of you. I used to tell people when you do an in-person interview, it's okay to bring a notebook.
Yep.
And just make a list of questions. Or if you're doing a Zoom interview or a Teams interview, have your questions typed out in front of you. I mean, you've got to be prepared. You have to know what types of questions they ask.
Absolutely. You know, well, you've heard the old adage, you make your own luck, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, when you go in prepared to an interview, you know who the interviewers are, their meetings, their personalities,
Yeah.
their career, you know about the company, and you're prepared and you feel like you're well, hey, look, I've researched these people. You're going to make your own luck.
Yeah, and you know, there's some basic questions. I'll give you some that I typically have my people answer. Like, the first one is like, what are the duties and responsibilities of this position?
Right.
Okay. Another one is what is the day in the life of an account manager or a producer or a operations manager, a director? Like, what is a typical day like?
Yeah.
Like, what would I typically be doing? You want to ask about
if I were to talk to
Yeah.
if I were to talk to 5 of your former employees, what would they tell me the culture here is like?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great one. Yeah.
Yeah.
How about this one? So you look the interviewer squarely in the eyes. Okay. And this is if the interview is going well, particularly towards the end of the interview. And you look at it and you say, what is the one thing that I could do in the first 6 months that would make you look great? Just tell me, what is that one thing I could do? And a lot of the clients, hiring authorities will call me afterwards and say, man, this guy blew me away. He asked me like what the one thing was. And then I told him, and then he said, is there any way that can be tied to a bonus?
Yep.
And that's a great question, I think. What's the one thing I could do?
Yeah, I think the part of research, the part of going in prepared, is, hey, look, you're meeting with the CEO of a company or an insurance agency or some, a vice president or whatever. It's understanding their background. What is the one thing that people want to talk about the most in life? When you go into a meeting, what is the one thing that people want to talk about? Themselves.
Exactly.
And their success. And you go in there and you talk about, hey, look, I noticed you were, you've been promoted 3 times, or I noticed that you were at another company and made the move over. Why and how? Why were you promoted 3 times? Or why did you move over? How did you get to where you are now? Now you just showed them, 1, you did your research on them, and 2, you're curious as to how they earned their success.
Yeah.
2 victories.
Yeah. No, that's good. And then what made the previous person successful or unsuccessful?
Yep. Why are you looking for this job?
Yeah.
But if you do some research, maybe you knew Sally. Yeah.
And there's
Sally was in that job and she's gone. Why is Sally gone?
Exactly. Did she retire or what?
Yeah. Did you fire her? Did she quit? Did she leave
We've talked about this a lot in previous shows, and I talked to somebody else this past weekend, actually, that's an HR, and they were talking about the number one thing that employees look for now in a company. The one thing that they want to the one thing that you'll particularly be able to retain your top talent is the company has to have a sense of purpose.
Oh, yeah.
And it has to be very well communicated. So during the interview, why not ask, what is your purpose? What is your mission? What do you as a company want to accomplish in the next 5 to 10 years? What is that mission? What's the purpose? Because if you don't know that, why the hell would you take the job?
Everything. Yeah. Look, at the end of the day, and your industry, you're talking about insurance. I'll go back to my brother. He's got a State Farm agency. His purpose is, hey, look, 60% of his clients are Hispanic. They pay cash. They do pretty well.
Yeah.
And his purpose is I help them grow their, I ensure they've got 2 or 3 couple of them, 3, 4 rental houses. And he's like, look, I help people who really don't speak English that well. I make it easy for them to navigate the system so that they can grow,
Yeah.
their lives. They
Yeah.
can get to work safely with insurance. They've got home insurance. And that's his purpose. I help people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's amazing that, he can help those Hispanic people. 60% of his customers are Hispanic because, the insurance business is kind of the same way. There's a whole segment of the population that is underserved, and those insurance agencies that can serve and support those people and provide them with guidance, particularly on their level of risk and that sort of thing, can do very well. So that doesn't surprise me at all.
But you think about most of your clients, comp and benefits. What are you doing? Hey, you're helping them. What's your purpose? You're helping employers provide their very best benefits to their employees so that they can grow, right? That's a great purpose. I mean, it's we're helping, we're helping businesses grow. I mean, and that is, the sense of purpose. That's everybody's telling me that now, especially the millennial crowd, Gen Z, wherever we're at. Look, if they can't see it, they're not into it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, good. So Craig, thank you for sharing your thoughts. Thank you for joining us once again on this busy and a very most important weekend, Memorial Day weekend, obviously. So once again, the three things: preparation, the art of storytelling, conversational mapping, and playing a little bit of offense. So Craig, how do people get a hold of you?
Oh, you can call me anytime. Office number is 910-509-7129. You can email me, Craig, that's CRAIG at northstaresg.com. LinkedIn, I'm all over LinkedIn. So there you go. Connect.
I know you are, man. I love your posts on LinkedIn, man. Because of your background in aviation, aerospace, you got some kick-ass LinkedIn stories on there. I go to your stuff.
Yeah, I got to start getting off. I don't know. Sometimes
I will admit, though, I read the Wall Street Journal first, and then I go to Craig Picken's post.
There you go. Come and listen to my rants, the rants of Craig Picken.
Exactly. And then for our viewers, we encourage you to subscribe below so you don't miss any of our future episodes, which are released every other Tuesday at 7:00 in the morning. And thanks so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks for another episode of $1 Million Career, where we, of course, help you plan, build, and supercharge your career.
Thanks, Rob, for having me on. Keep doing what you're doing. I love reading your stuff too, and it's all great.
Thanks, Greg. I appreciate it.
Cool, man.